So you may have heard about these alleged 142 laws in modern-day South Africa that are racial or racist. But very, very few people have actually read and investigated this claim. We did, though. So let's get into it. The Institute of Race Relations is a research and policy organization. They have published what they call an index of race laws. They claim that 142 racial acts of parliament are operative today. Now, people use that claim to suggest that South Africa's current laws are racist, if not or as racist, if not more racist, than apartheid was. Now, as I said, unlike the vast majority of South Africans who are now claiming that they are all of these racist laws and therefore the government is racist, we actually went and looked at the list and the legislation they included. Newsflash, it's all a bunch of hot air. Their strategy seems to be hoping that you won't bother to go and read the list or the legislation yourself, and they appear to have just clicked Control F, which is find word, to find the words race, racial, and disadvantaged in every single act. If they found any of those words, they put the act on their list without any regard for how and why the words were used in the act. Nearly all of the laws they mentioned simply have provisions to give disadvantaged communities a fair chance and redress past injustice. You know, the way that just laws work. But they're acting like these racial laws, these race laws, are the same as apartheid. And just so you know, we did the work. So whether you like it or not, here are 25 examples from their list. Yeah, 25. Strap in, folks. We're getting into this. Okay, the Public Services Act. Race is mentioned once. Quote, redress the imbalances of the past to achieve a public service broadly representative of the South African people, including representation according to race, gender, and disability. So it's about giving fair opportunities. If they have a problem with that, they must also have a problem with gender and disability representation too, right? Why didn't they make an index of sexual laws? Just race laws. Okay, Labor Relations Act. Race is mentioned. Quote, the constitution of any trade union or employees organization which intends to register any, not include any provision that discriminates directly or indirectly against any person on the grounds of race or sex. So it's about preventing discrimination. How dare you, racist government? National Arts Council Act. Objects of the council is to, quote, give the historically disadvantaged such additional help and resources as they are required to give them greater access to artists. So redressing historic injustice. So evil. Okay, next. Marine Living Resources Act. Quote, the minister shall, in order to achieve the objectives contemplated in Section 2, have particular regard to the need to permit new entrants, particularly those from historically disadvantaged sectors of society. Disgusting. All right, next, the National Water Act. After appointing members to the board, the minister may appoint additional members selected by the minister in order to achieve representation of disadvantaged persons or communities which have been prejudiced by past racial and gender discrimination in relation to access to water. Scandal. Next, the National Forests Act. Quote, the purpose of this act is to promote greater participation in all aspects of forestry and the forest products industry by persons disadvantaged by unfair discrimination. Trees are racist. All right. Next, the Correctional Services Act. The assessment of persons shall be based on level of training, relevant skills, competence, and the need to address the imbalances of the past in order to achieve a department broadly representative of the South African population, including representation according to race, gender, and disability. Aha! Another one for the index of sexual laws that are oppressing men. Okay, next, the National Health Services Laboratory Act. The board consists of the following members appointed by the minister, taking into account, amongst other things, the appropriate representation of race, gender, and disability. Now we have to start another index complaining that able-bodied people are being persecuted by all of these unfair disability laws. They're going to have to make so many laws. All right, next, the Gas Act, because yes, gas is racist. The Gas Act must promote companies in the gas industry that are owned or controlled by historically disadvantaged South Africans by means of license conditions so as to enable them to become competitive. The South African Weather Service Act. Quote, the Weather Service must take reasonable steps to develop skills and capacity of the Weather Service so as to enable it to provide for the needs of disadvantaged communities. Yes, the weather is racist. That's why only the whites get sunburnt. It's racist. It's not climate change, it's racist. The Geomatics Profession Act, quote, the need to promote representation, including gender, disability, and other demographic representations. The Community Schemes Ombud Service Act, quote, the need for representation of historically disadvantaged persons. The National Land Transport Act, quote, promoting the economic empowerment of small business or of persons previously disadvantaged by unfair discrimination. The National Qualifications Framework Act, quote, due attention must be given to representativity of the board in terms of such factors as race, gender, and disability. What's that? We're running out of time. But I have so many more. I only did 15 out of 25. I spent so long reading this drivel this weekend. Yes, I know our TV show has a limited run time, but okay, fine. You get the point. All of these apparently racist laws do mention race, but in very obviously reasonable ways. Some of them literally mention race when saying no one can be prejudiced against someone else based on race. And others say we need to make sure that our workplaces reflect all of South Africa because a lot don't due to past injustice and historical disadvantage. So maybe let's take steps to fix that. They also include gender and disability under disadvantaged. So when they say 142 race laws that are just like apartheid, that exists on the idea that giving some opportunities to disadvantaged people is racist, not redress or justice. In most of these laws, disadvantaged includes women, but they aren't crying about the 142 sexist laws. What I'm trying to tell you is they don't buy their own argument, folks. They're just using it to push a political agenda. Now, before you say, Dan, gotcha, that sounds like you're prejudicing some people based on race. Please be serious. Our country was built into a system that excluded millions of South Africans on race, formally and socially. And our social order has excluded millions of South Africans based on gender and disability too. That has left so many people disadvantaged. The playing field is unfair. The provisions in these laws are about trying to redress that, to undo that unjust system, to provide redress and opportunity. It's called transformative justice. It's not the same as prejudice. Redressing injustice on race is not inherently racist in the same way that redressing injustice on gender is not inherently sexist, guys. Prejudice is what apartheid did. And that's what is so disingenuous and ahistorical about the argument that says that modern South Africa is just like apartheid and maybe worse. The argument that says that all these racial laws are racist like apartheid was. None of these modern laws bar white South Africans, bar them based on race, just like they don't bar men based on gender. They simply try to counteract unfairness in our normal social systems that disadvantage people of color, women, and disabled people. The apartheid government didn't allow black people to own land in most of the country. It didn't allow black people to go certain places. If they could go, it was only on the permission of a white person and a permit. The apartheid government forcibly removed black people from land. The apartheid government didn't let black people get a decent education beyond the level of base servitude menial jobs. The apartheid government didn't let black people do decent jobs at all. The apartheid government denied black people opportunities to gain wealth, and the apartheid government created laws that created white people wealth. That's racist. And that is so much infinitely more impactful than trying to level the playing field in modern-day South Africa. No amount of counting up modern South African laws equals the Land Act, the Group Areas Act, the Pass Laws, the Bantu Education Act. And it's so incredibly offensive to even try and make them seem similar. If modern South Africa did not have legislation that levels the playing field to give fair chances to disadvantaged groups, then the exact unequal society that apartheid created would continue to exist. And to all those white people complaining that now we have it so hard, here is some data from the first census after apartheid ended so you can understand what apartheid did. From the 1996 census, 1 in 5 black South Africans lived in informal housing. 0.1% of white South Africans did. Over 6 million black South Africans in 96 had no access to piped water. 3% of white South Africans did not have access to piped water. 59% of black South Africans had no waste removal in their communities. Just 8% of white South Africans had no waste removal in their communities. 56%, over half of black South Africans had no access to electricity in 1996. Less than 1% 0.4 of white South Africans had no electricity. And today, all data reveals that white people are living longer than all the other races, are wealthier and better educated with better opportunities than other races, are better protected in safety and security than all the other races in this country, and have far better quality of life than all other races. And that's with progressive laws that are trying to create transformative justice and evolve our society, level the playing field, and give all South Africans a fair chance. Actual racist apartheid laws would have stripped white South Africans of all of this in far fewer than 30 years. So on these 142 laws, let's be serious, please.